Hey everybody, it's Derek here. We're going to be taking a look at the news for the 2nd to the 8th of August 2021. So, Sony PlayStation had a kind of an indie event about in the middle of the week where they announced a couple of indie titles that are coming to PS4 and or PS5. Most of them have been announced already for other platforms, so they're just making their way to PlayStation now, or they were part of the Xbox indie thing. Bothered to tack on their own logo to the end of their trailer or whatever. But anyway, A Short Hike, which has been out on PC and Switch for a while, will be making its appearance on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. If you're not familiar, A Short Hike is a nice, cozy game where you play a bird crow type creature who's going on a short hike and gets involved in, wholesome shenanigans like playing with the local people or taking boat rides or gliding about the place and just generally being a nice fun time. Doesn't take itself very seriously. It's just a pretty chill experience, and it's won a lot of awards and has gotten great kind of critical reception just for being nice fuzzy fun time feelings. Then Oxenfree 2, which again had been already announced at I think Nintendo's Indie Direct. But again, they're just kind of confirming that, it's going to be on PlayStation as well. I believe the trailer is much the same. In fact, I think it's exactly the same as the one for the Indie Direct. So nothing new there. Just that it's going to be on PlayStation. Also, Axiom Verge 2, again, also already been announced at a different event. If you're not familiar, the original Axiom Verge, celebrated as a modern masterpiece, is a kind of a Metroidvania type deal, whereas the newer one, Axiom Verge 2, will be a bit more melee focused, and also instead of being a kind of scientist, you're now more of like an engineer hackery type person. You have control of a drone and you can hack enemies. I don't know if it goes into it here. So you can do different hacking here, overclock enemies or make them explode or make them change allegiance and that kind of stuff. So it's different gameplay, so it's not quite Axiom Verge 1, but more. It's like considerably different gameplay. That should be interesting. Carrion, which had been on Switch and PC, and I think it was on Xbox, but I don't remember. It's from Devolver Digital. This is a cinematic trailer, so it's not showing off a ton of game, or it's actually showing off exactly zero gameplay. But the premise of Carrion is that you are the monster in the mansion. Basically, you are the alien in Aliens. You are the thing in the thing. That's kind of the premise. You're the bad guy. You're the horror monster, and you are like, it kind of plays like a side-scrolly Metroidvania type thing, except you are an amorphous biomass blob thing that has various abilities where it can kind of stealthily take out people or just engulf them in biomass or whatever. Again, this trailer's not showing off any gameplay, but I'm sure you can find it if you so chose. Sol Cresta is a big throwback to a really old shmup, like the original shmups, not the new shmups. Proper portrait style. I'm a spaceship on the bottom of the screen and all my enemies are at the top of the screen kind of thing. This is, I'm not sure if it's a remaster or if it's like a reimagining, but it's from Hamster Corporation, but I think they're a subsidiary of Platinum. It's from Hideki Kamiya, so I'm sure a lot of you are probably already familiar with him, but he's Bayonetta and Wonderful 101, I think, are his most recent stuff. So, there's some good. You'll probably, be expecting some pretty decent arcade shootery stuff. I'm just not sure if there is a ton of appeal to people who don't already like these kind of games. And then not last. There's actually one more after this. This is Witchwood, and I always, when I see the two games side by side, it's obvious which one is which, but I always get them confused when I just see their titles between Witchwood and Little Witch in the Wood, which are kind of somewhat similar games, but they have very, very different tones. Witchwood is a bit horror. It's a bit creepy. There's like Doctor's Octopus back there, or whatever that was. Like, it's still kind of played for laughs, but there's obviously some kind of weird monster stuff going on in the background. Not necessarily a combat game. I think it plays a bit more like Starve or Stardew Valley. I'm not sure how much survival stuff. To be honest, I don't know a whole lot about Witchwood. So I'm not sure if it's a pure survival type game or if it's an actual like management sim like Stardew Valley is. But I guess we'll find out at some point. It looks suitably weird and creepy though. And the very, very last one, Hades. No one's heard of that game before, right? This is a fairly lengthy video from PlayStation Underground where they just kind of interview some of the developers. There's just a bit of Hades gameplay, but if you don't already know, Hades is an incredible roguelike. It's really, really good. I've played it not quite to death, but like really close on Switch, and looking forward to pretty much doing it all over again on PlayStation and get some trophies for it this time as well. That'll be fun. Taking a romp through Hades all over again. And elsewhere, some leaks from a behind doors developers conference for the PlayStation VR 2, or the NGVR2 the NGVR as they're calling it, the next gen VR. These are basically, there have been some kind of updates on the specs. There's been no change in the resolution. It's basically 2000p for both eyeballs. It has a significantly wider field of view than the original PSVR, and it's also wider than the Oculus Quest 2. So it's sitting at 110 degrees as opposed to the Oculus's 100. I think the PSVR 2 had 90 for both eyes. But some comments that Sony representatives made at the time, that they're looking to move away from VR experiences and focus more on console quality play titles. What they mean there is, instead of looking at something like Arkham VR, where you pretend you're Batman for like an hour or so, and looking more at something like Resident Evil 7, which is like a full-on AAA game that can be played in VR as well, or the Hitman VR, same deal. That's not really an experiential VR thing. It's a full-on game. That's what they're looking to go for. They're looking to go for like kind of hybrid games where you can play it in VR, you can play it outside of VR, whatever. Your choice, pick one. Definitely something I'm more interested in looking at, because as fun as VR stuff is, I don't really want to put it on just for like an hour, and just be done with it, because it takes a lot to set up. You gotta clear out your room and all that. I don't like to do sit down VR. I prefer to stand up. I don't know why. Just prefer it that way. And clearing out space and all that just to do like 30 minutes is like, give me like a full-on thing where I'm going to be there the whole fucking day. That's what I'm looking for. Obviously not everybody is. I kind of that kind of thing. The other thing they're looking at is remastering the original PSVR games, PSVR 2, which will probably take some considerable changes, because PSVR was an object tracking system. By that means it had a camera, and the camera would follow the lights on the PSVR display. These lights, it would follow them, and then it would also follow the PS Move controller, which is basically a stick with a LED ball on the top of it, and it would follow them around, and that's how they did object tracking. Whereas PSVR 2 appears to be more of it's in-visor camera system, so they will do eye tracking instead of object tracking, which is much friendlier for setting up your environment, because you don't have to, one, clear out space, but then also have a wide enough space that the camera can see you, and so on. Like, it affects time of day, it affects the lighting in your room, and so on. There's far too many moving parts in an object tracking scenario, unless you have like a static clean room that you can just set aside for VR, which I don't think we're there yet as a society. I think we're a couple of generations before we have, you know, we have the kitchen, and we have the bathroom, we have the bedroom, we have the sitting room, and then we'll have the VR room. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we're like double-digit generations away from that happening. I don't know. I can live and dream. There's a small thing here about how the rendering is going to be done. I know we're kind of diving into really nitty-gritty, well, not really nitty-gritty details, but like one level above. But basically, they're going to be doing flexible scaling resolution and foveated rendering. So, to explain the two of them, foveated rendering is, so I've kind of explained before, but it's in conjunction with eye tracking in that they'll only render in super detail what the person is actually looking at. And everything else will be of lesser detail, and the further the scene gets away from what you're looking at, the less detail, and so on. So you're only really ever high detail on what you're looking at. And then flexible scaling basically means when you abruptly change where you're looking, but you change your direction, there's not like a black screen for a second while they render everything again. They can quickly scale up and scale down. Basically, is what they're going for, flexible scaling stuff. So the combination of the two of them means that the PS5 won't have to do too much work, or won't have to do so much work to push out a high fidelity screen to both eyes at the same time at 60 frames per second or higher than that. If it's going to be sitting right on your face, you kind of want a high frame rate as possible. We'll see how that goes. And then the rest of it was just kind of detailing the details we already knew about it, which was the controllers that will have capacitive buttons, that they'll be using the wrist rings that you see in the Oculus Quest controllers and the Vive and stuff like that. New releases this week, not much, honestly, not much that interests me anyway. I'm sure there are plenty of games out that interest other people. I would point out that whenever I do these new release things, they're for games that are either on my radar, as it were, or I found particularly interesting on like the internet. This is Grime, which is you guessed it, it's a side-scrolling Metroidvania type thing. I have a type, guys. It's side-scrolling Metroidvania. Where it's not a roguelike as far as I am aware. It's a persistent action game, or whatever you want to call it. Basically, you don't go back to the start when you die. You just go back to whatever the last checkpoint was. You play this black hole thing that has formed a body of stone or whatever. But anyway, it's like fun combat times with kind of lots of different game mechanics that you can do with the black hole in your head, for like parrying, for hardening, dodging, and then just like different weapons you can pick up. They all have different weapon styles, different abilities and stuff like that. There's a lot there. It's currently PC only, PC and Stadia, I suppose, if you have it. It's currently PC and Epic Games. Steam and Epic Games at the moment. Hopefully it'll hit consoles at some point. I could see it living at home on the Switch, but it might be a bit much for the Switch to handle. I don't know, because there's a lot of particle effects. Lots and lots of particle effects. It may not be able to handle it too well, unless they'd have to downgrade it or whatever. I don't know. It's on my radar because I saw it when it was shown off in one of the, I think it was the PC Gamer show around E3, and it looked interesting. Okay, right. Before we get into industry bullshit, we have to focus particularly on just one particular company in the industry. So the Blizzard lawsuit continues to have fallout, mostly around the inner workings of the company, basically. So if you recall, Blizzard, or Activision Blizzard, as it were, are currently under investigation by the California Department of Employment and Housing or something. I forget their entire title. For sexual harassment, sexual abuse, toxic workplace. bad shit going on in the company, and it's been going on for years. They are currently under, well, they've been served a lawsuit for it, so I guess they are currently maybe appealing it, or they're waiting for a court date, or waiting to see if a judge says they have the go-ahead to do discovery, which is like the preliminary stage before they fully go to court. Assuming they do go to court, which I imagine they will. I imagine Activision will appeal it, considering what their response to the lawsuit was the last 2 weeks. But this is kind of update from Frances Townsend, who is currently Chief Compliance Officer with Activision. You may recall she, when the lawsuit was first levied against Activision, she sent out an internal email calling the claims false and misleading, and based on old data and a bunch of other stuff. Employees were like, no, that's very, very true. What the fuck are you doing? So coming on from that, she sent out a tweet earlier in the week, which was linking back to an article which was saying the problem with whistleblowing. It's just like, wow. Read the room. Anyway, she got serious fucking flack for doing that. Just looking through the Twitter thread, which I would link, except she deleted her account in the meantime. Unfortunately, the original tweet no longer exists, but the replies to it are still there if you want to check it out. There's a link here in this article if you want to go there. It's basically like, what the fuck are you doing? Kotaku, for their part, reached out to Activision to see what's the deal with her basically deleting her entire account. Activision came back to say, that's her account. We didn't tell her to do anything. She did that all by herself. The original story was that she was just blocking everybody who criticized her, people within the industry, fans, journalists, but also fellow employees and possibly direct reports and so on. Not a good look for someone who's meant to be like Chief Compliance Officer for the company. This article also kind of goes on to like reiterate or remind people that she did serve in the George W. Bush campaign, and she was a torture apologist for all of that. She was instrumental in raising the national terror threat level, which was based on 3-year-old evidence, and she has the gall to say that the lawsuit is out of date. This is a quote. This is basically where the torture apology comes from. There were very strict controls on the program, the torture program. These people relied on them, and now to release them and to subject these people, these career professionals, to a sort of public humiliation and opprobrium, and then the potential of a congressional investigation really will make our intelligence community risk averse. It's almost like you don't want people being told that bad things are happening at your company, at your administration. And now, 10 years later, same thing. She began systematically blocking anyone even mildly critical, employees and colleagues. There's a nice mention here about the corporate values of Activision, but great ideas can come from anywhere. Blizzard Entertainment is what it is today because of the voices of our players and of each member of the company. Every employee is encouraged to speak up, listen, be respectful of other opinions, and embrace criticism as just another avenue for great ideas. She began systematically blocking anyone even mildly critical of her decision. Big oops on that one. I'm not sure if it's in this story or if it's in another story, but she recently stepped down from the Activision Blizzard King, like a women's group, women's group. WWW. That's what the WWW in URL stands for. It stands for women's group. She was head of it up until last week, and she stepped down from that, but she is still currently Chief Compliance Officer for Activision. Activision Blizzard staff reject company's choice of law firm. So if you remember last week, Activision CEO Bobby Kotick sent a letter back to, or a reply to the open letter from Activision Blizzard employees, where he did not address any of their requests at all, and was basically saying yada yada corporate speak, we'll do better and we're going to be really good for you and whatever, and we're also hiring this law firm to check and audit our practices to make sure we're doing the best we can. Except that law firm may or may not already have a pre-existing relationship with us. Oops. So Activision Blizzard employees denounced the company's choice for hiring law firm WilmerHale. Kotick's recent reactions don't address the demands that they shared last week. The biggest issue that the ABK Alliance, they reject the decision for multiple reasons, one of which is a big old conflict of interest because the law firm has a pre-existing relationship with Activision Blizzard, meaning they are not an independent third party. Not only that, but the person in charge of the audit, Avakian, has a history of protecting the wealthy and powerful. As you recall, we had a look at that last week, and I think it was Kotaku did a kind of a deeper dive on WilmerHale. They're not good people. We are doing what we can, and we call on you to do what we cannot. This is what the group said to Bobby Kotick, and his response was, let's bring in the Union Busters. Blizzard's president is out as company announces new leadership. So Jay Allenbrack, who's been with Blizzard for a really long time, and is one of the few people actually named in the lawsuit, has now stepped down. Not only stepped down as president, but he has left the company entirely to pursue new opportunities. New opportunities like not getting sued into oblivion, probably. Replacing him will be Jen O'Neill and Mike Ibarra as co-leaders of Blizzard. O'Neill is former head of Vicarious Visions, those behind the Crash reboot, and was executive VP of development at Blizzard prior to promotion. They've actually only been there like 2 years or so. Also female. Ibarra was employed at Microsoft for 20 years and was corporate VP, gross, of gaming for Xbox. Moved to Blizzard in 2019. Also hasn't been there very long. Executive VP and general manager. So both of them probably not part of the, the inner kind of boys club, basically, of Blizzard. So hopefully they're decent promotions. And they're maybe represented at an actual turning point for the company. Doubt it, but hopefully. The rest of the article basically just highlights Jay Allenbrack's role in the whole lawsuit thing. Brack is one of the few Activision Blizzard employees referred to by name in last month's lawsuit. Defendants, Jay Allenbrack and others here, failed to take effective remedial measures in response to these complaints. Jay Allenbrack, president of Blizzard Entertainment, allegedly had multiple conversations with Siabi, who we talked about before, who's a big fucking perv. Not even like much worse. Should be worse. Probably is. Predator, I guess. About his drinking and that he had been too friendly towards female employees at company events, but gave Astrabi a slap on the wrist in response to these incidents. After Astrabi continued to make unwanted advances towards female employees. Jay Allenbrack last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, sent an email to staff saying that the details of the lawsuit were extremely troubling and he wanted to meet to answer questions and discuss how we can move forward. Without you, I guess, was the answer to that one. Continuing, Activision is still not having a good day. Activision faces new lawsuit, this time from its investors. Yes, we've had first lawsuit, but what about second lawsuit? So, kind of hinted at this a bit last week. There wasn't too much detail about it, but basically the investor group that invests in Activision Blizzard are more or less accusing the company of fiduciary malfeasance, which basically means you didn't tell us all the things. That means we're gonna lose money now. The lawsuit alleges that between 2016 and 2021, Activision Blizzard didn't disclose the issues with its workplace culture, that it discriminated against women and minority employees, fostered a pervasive frat boy workplace culture that continues to thrive, that HR did nothing, that this pervasive culture of harassment would result in serious impairments in their operations, i.e. we're going to lose money. As a result of the above, Activision Blizzard is now at greater risk of regulatory and legal scrutiny and enforcement. That's going to have a materially adverse effect. We're going to lose money. The company failed to inform investors about the lawsuit that had been going on for over 2 years. Now, this one's all like this one's buried right at the end, but that's the big one. That's the big one right there. It's like, hold on, the company's been under fucking review for 2 years, and you said nothing. They've had investor meetings. They have them like every quarter. That's 8 meetings. They said nothing. Oh, you got you. Oh, you guys fucked. As a result, investors have suffered damages. We lost money. The Activision Blizzard shares did drop like a considerable amount in shares. I don't know what way I wanted to say that, but it wasn't like that. But it's like the actual percentage is very small, but in shares world, that's like a considerable drop. That shouldn't be happening. The rest of the article then goes to highlight there was an actual investors call this week. Activision and Blizzard, Bobby Kotick basically said, yeah, we're looking into the allegations or whatever, yada yada. But Call of Duty is going to be coming out again at the end of this year, and oh boy, is it going to keep making us money. Dickhead. Okay, more people leaving Blizzard. Blizzard HR executive leaves company amid harassment lawsuit. Activision Blizzard senior vice president of global HR, Jesse Meschuk, don't know how you say it, reportedly left the company earlier this week. Again, kind of highlighting the parts in the lawsuit that directly attribute problems to the HR department. Part of the case claims that the company's HR department failed to protect its employees and address concerns raised. Inappropriate and unsatisfactory action from the HR department in response to complaints. One employee shares her experience while trying to raise a problem with an untouchable colleague. It's not harassment. He didn't touch you. Don't have to touch you for it to be harassment, guys. HR representative said she was acting like a brat and was told to suck it up. Another staffer mentions that reporting issues had a surprising lack of paper trail, and you're just sort of saying things out into the void. Like, nobody's taking notes. There's no reports happening. They're basically just going to smile and nod and then do nothing about it. The rest of the article then just highlights that Jay Ellenbrock is gone and it's being replaced by Jen O'Neill and Mikey Barra, which we've already talked about. Okay, report. Mike Morhaime, previous president of Blizzard, and other execs were well aware of this rampant misconduct. An assistant to Mike Morhaime, who was CEO at the time, claimed to have informed him as well as other senior leadership about rampant misconduct that went on within the company. So they knew. They absolutely knew. Did nothing about it. It kind of highlights how there were like the original Blizzard team, the original like founders and developers were untouchable, like rock stars. You know, they didn't want to touch them because they were making the money more or less. You just stopped going to HR because they didn't do anything. The source recalled a conversation to Bloomberg where an executive expressed to staff that young women who were fans or worked at the company see them as superstars, and why shouldn't they benefit sexually from this? Dude, he said the quiet part really fucking loud. And it really shouldn't even be a quiet part. Imagine, that's an executive saying that shit. Two staff out loud, not two other executives even. That would even made it any better. The report also notes senior Blizzard execs Morheim, founder Frank Pierce, and former president Jay Allenbrack all married women in less senior roles at the company. Now, on the surface, like, it's not great. Like, potentially there's some grooming issue there, but fine. But this set an uncomfortable precedent for some of the female staff, as it led to unwanted sexual advances at work. So it was like, hey, all of my bosses married subordinates. Maybe I can do that. Hey, other person I work with. So on, like, all the time. And it is already set out as an example from your, like, top level people. Former staff said that they had lower salaries, so this is about kind of the pay disparity issue that's also there. A source shared a screenshot of a manager telling her that pay discussions among staff were prohibited. No, they're not. It's not illegal to just talk about your pay. You should be doing more of it. This is how they keep you not being paid what you're worth. It's by making it taboo to talk about your salary. It's not. It shouldn't be. I mean, sorry, it is, but it shouldn't be. Not only is it not illegal, but specifically where they work in California, the Equal Pay Act of 2015 specifically made it illegal for employers to prohibit workers from discussing their pay with each other. So that's demonstrably false. Activision Blizzard spokesperson came back to say that they strive to pay all employees equitably for equal work. Strive to. They don't, but hey, they strive to, so that's something, right? Activision Blizzard is losing sponsors, so even more money being lost as companies are like, get the fuck away from me. I don't want your stink on me. We got our own problems. We don't want your problems on top of it. So first of all, T-Mobile, or T-Mobile as Americans insist on pronouncing it, even though there is clearly an E at the end of the word. Mobile. T-Mobile is apparently pulling support for the professional leagues of Overwatch and Call of Duty. Now, they say apparently because they haven't officially backed away, but references to T-Mobile have been removed from league websites for Overwatch and Call of Duty. T-Mobile's Call of Duty sweepstakes have been cancelled. Quietly, wasn't announced, it's just not happening. And even kind of hilariously, esports team for Call of Duty have taped over the T-Mobile logo on their jerseys. They just put electrician's tape over their jersey, which is hilarious, but also it's kind of something you do. It's kind of something you do if you're filming and somebody is wearing a brand logo or a brand top, like you're wearing a Nike top or something, and you're like, we absolutely don't have permission to have their stuff in our video or whatever, so you put a tag over it just to not show it, so you don't have that issue. It's the same reason you might see laptops in movies or TV shows, and they're clearly MacBooks, but they've got a sticker over the Apple logo, so it could be anything. You don't know. It's the same reason. It's because they just don't want to have to pay Apple for it. Then there was an update that they've lost even more money because now Coca-Cola and State Farm are like, nope, don't want any of this shit. So if you're not from the US, State Farm are a insurance company of some kind, I think. To be fair, not entirely sure myself, because I'm also not from America, but I think they're an insurance company. I don't know if they're a corporate insurance or a personal insurance or particular insurance. I don't know. But whatever, they're not sponsoring Overwatch League anymore. Neither is Coca-Cola. Although Coca-Cola is just saying, we're taking a step back. Not that we are absolutely cutting ties or anything like that. Then Kellogg's, the anti-masturbation cereal company, look it up, are also pulling support for the Overwatch League. So yeah, Whether it's true or not, whether the lawsuit can be corroborated or not, there's enough of a stink coming off Activision that these big companies want absolutely no part of them. So Kotaku here has kind of an interview with the woman from the World of Warcraft video that's kind of been making the rounds about basically once this lawsuit came out, and when Jay Allenbrack was trying to say he's very concerned about what's coming out here, only to be shown a video where he's absolutely in on it. Anyway, this woman goes by Xantia, which is her WoW handle. It's not using her real name. Wasn't even aware of the controversy until somebody had sent them a message on Facebook with a gif of the Leo DiCaprio thing where he points at the TV screen. He's like, that. I was like, I know that. That's pretty funny. And she kind of goes into her history with Blizzard, and she really likes the games but didn't like the female representation, but she kind of didn't make anything of the panel at all. It's only now that it's kind of being brought out in the context of all of this, and it's like, yeah, that kind of sucked. But she's very much on the side of the employees at the company, that kind of thing. I would suggest you give it a read. It's not that long. It just kind of goes into the just that panel Q&A thing, and just highlights a lot of shit that was plainly obvious really at the time. And then Games Industry Biz, who's been really good with this Activision stuff. A lot of really good ones. But they have a nice kind of satirical attempt at defending PUB-Guh-Buh-Guh about these kind of things, where they have a bunch of quotes that seem like they were good at the time, and then they're followed up by quotes that are very much not good. Not good signs. Not that we don't already know that PUB-Guh-Buh-Guh is not a piece of shit, but like, this article is quite funny about it. I would encourage you to give it a read, even if it's just to give you a refresher on why he's such a piece of shit. Okay, we'll dive further into industry bullshit. So now the wider gulf of bullshit. We've been inside the core bullshit of this week, which was Activision Blizzard, and now we're going to go out to the spokes, the rest of the bullshit. So, co-founder Steve Gaynor of Fullbright has stepped down following complaints from employees. So, this is a report from Polygon, which goes into some pretty difficult detail, but it's very similar to what's happening at Blizzard. But the difference here is that Fullbright is a very small company. It's only like 20 people. But now it's only like 6, because so many people have left the company, and almost every single one of them have attributed to just multiple allegations of mistreating Fullbright employees, particularly women. 15 employees have left the studio since development on Open Roads, just their next game, began 2019, so 2 years ago. 12 former employees said their departure was at least in part due to Gaynor's behavior toward workers, specifically women. At least 10 of the employees who left since Open Roads production began were women. Staffers felt undermined and demeaned by Gaynor, worried about being blacklisted from the industry. The studio's toxic culture hid behind the veneer of inclusivity, as women were allegedly repeatedly broken down by microaggressions. So, Fullbright made Gone Home. They made Tacoma, and outwardly they appear like a very inclusive, forward-thinking company, from their writing, from the story content, from that kind of thing. And it goes on to it later in the article, but their games somewhat appeal more to women than to men, and that would also lead to them getting more female applicants than male applicants. And the HR department were worried about hiring more women because of how Steve Gaynor, would treat them. They were like, yeah, they're really good for the part, but also, not for the part, for the job. But this guy's such a piece of shit. I don't want to I don't want to subject them to it. And it's like, what do you do in that scenario? So, Fullbright representative confirmed the gamer stepped down in March due to a pattern of women leaving the company. Lots of different actions were taken prior to that, but they were only yielding temporary results. So basically, he was sent to seminars or whatever, or given a stern talking to. He like showed up for a day and then was right back to it again. More drastic action was needed for the health of the team. The drastic action being get the fuck out. To be clear, he has not left the company. He's just stepped down as creative director. He's still writing. Again, further down the article, they're like, how can he write these kind of things? How can he write these kind of like Open Roads is about a woman and her daughter going on a road trip, like bonding and such, and it's like the other employees can't countenance how he can write these things and also treat women the way he does. And he should not be allowed to keep writing these things, and absolutely agree. Annapurna Interactive, who are the game's publisher, I think they've only been the publisher for this game. I don't think they worked with them for Gone Home and Tacoma. Maybe they did. I don't remember. They're aware of the situation and were like kind of instrumental on the more drastic action part. There's a letter here from Steve Gaynor, but fuck him. Fullbright have always been a small independent studio, just 4 people, 3 of whom were co-founders of the company created Gone Home. For the studio's next game, Tacoma, the number of staffers increased by more than double. Following the success of these 2 games, Fullbright continued to grow, taking on more contractors. So, I've only highlighted this paragraph because this is kind of the start of what happens in these companies and how they can have these kind of toxic situations come up. It's when the company gets too big too fast and they don't put the correct managerial stuff in place. Like later on in the article, it'll be pointed out that they didn't have a HR department. Like they had only hired developers or whatever. Like they don't have the people. Like once your company gets over a certain amount, you need people who are dedicated to just getting the office to run properly. Like have nothing to do with the game, have nothing to do with the product or whatever. They're just, their job is to just make sure people can work. That's it. There was a sense that Steve Gaynor himself was Fullbright, so that's the Blizzard Rockstar Superstar developer thing. They're untouchable. It's bad. Doesn't work. There was an issue that Gaynor owned the Fullbright Twitter handle. Like it wasn't an official thing. It was his personal Twitter account. So employees were uncomfortable with the official Fullbright account doubling as Steve's personal Twitter account. That's now changed. At Fullbright Twitter account has been not shuttered exactly. It's in stasis, or what's the word they use? Not archived, but it's like it's not going to be updated anymore. But it's still there, kind of thing. He now has his own Twitter account, and Fullbright are now Fullbright Games is the official Twitter. Working for him often felt like working for a high school mean girl. Like the fucking pettiness and just inability to grow up. Here to say the company had no dedicated human resource employees. They'd outsource it on a kind of needs basis to like a third-party contractor who, from other reading in this article, were not helpful. Again, there is like considerably more to this report. I'm not going to highlight everything. Annapurna is operating as a mediator between the studio developers and Gaynor. So, again, this is just to point out that he's not in the creative director role anymore for the company, not just on the game, but for the company at large. They'll need to beef up their team because remember, there's only 6 of them now. Their new game still has to come out. Anyway, that is a really good report by Nicole Carpenter for Polygon. I don't normally do Polygon articles just because. It's a particular reason, actually. I think I just happened to find articles earlier in Kotaku or Eurogamer or whoever, and Polygon are maybe a little bit slower, and I just don't get to them. And yes, this highlighting extension that I use for Polygon only sort of half works, which is also a problem. I think that's actually the reason I don't. EA claims it doesn't get enough credit for how well it works with acquired studios. So this is kind of a small one, just because I wanted to laugh at the fucking hubris of EA when it has this graveyard of developers behind it to try to say they don't get enough credit. This is coming from an earnings call that EA had. They were touting that how well Formula 1 2021 did under Codemasters. Now the thing is, Formula 1 2021 was pretty much done. Like, basically done before EA bought Codemasters. This is again like them taking credit for Mass Effect 2. You know, EA like just bought BioWare. The game came out like 2 months later or something. Trying to take credit for Mass Effect 2, and then Mass Effect 3 happened. Like, get fucked. Same with Dragon Age. Now, Dragon Age 1, really, really good. Get bought by EA. Dragon Age 2, piece of shit. Actually, that's not fair. Dragon Age 2 is a piece of shit. It's okay. It's okay. Not great. Could have been considerably better. And Dragon Age Inquisition is just a slog of a game. Let's not get into that. The point is, you didn't even get it right with Formula because you didn't own the company at the time. So you can't call for that. Respawn with Apex has only really worked because you just did nothing to Respawn. You just said, here you go, we'll leave you alone. And you let them do what they wanted. And they go, and this is what you got out of it. It's when you meddle, you fuck things up. And he wants to take credit for not fucking up a company. For one, just letting them do what they were doing already. And two, coming in at the last minute and reaping the success. Never mind all the other companies they've lost. You know, DICE are still sort of going with Battlefield, but pretty much all they do now is Battlefield. They used to do a lot of other shit. Criterion Games for Burnout, they're gone. BioWare, pretty much gone. More or less been replaced. Like the same thing that happened with Codemasters, which was Codemasters got bought, and then the head of Codemasters left, bought out. We'll give you this nice financial package if you will step down from your position. Same thing happened in BioWare, and I think the two heads of BioWare at the time just left the industry entirely. They just went, I'm out of here. Same thing happened with Respawn, but I might be thinking of Raven. I confuse the two of them a lot, and I really shouldn't because they make very different games. Anyway. But same thing happened with Codemasters. Like the heads of Codemasters are gone. And it's only a matter of time before they get EA'd. Alright. This is kind of a developing story because we don't know too much about it. Game payment company CEO sounds like an asshole. So, right. So why can't I say this right? Game payment company Zola. Anyway, reportedly planning to lay off 150 people for being unengaged and unproductive. Now, how did they determine that 150 people were unengaged and unproductive? AI! They used big data to figure it out. Absolutely, totally reliable big data analytics. That definitely works. The big data team determined that people weren't moving their mouse around in Jira. That's it. That's all it was. If you work in we'll take like a developer's job, for instance, right? They might use Jira for tracking, if you're not familiar, for tracking tasks or bugs in the game or that kind of thing. It's like somebody in QA finds a bug, they put it up in Jira as a ticket. And it's like, yada yada. When I press the jump button, guy goes into space. And, Actual result, guy goes in space. Expected result, guy does not go in space. Right? That's the bug. That's all it is in Jira. It takes you a minute at most, maybe, to write up the bug. Maybe 5 minutes if it's a particularly nasty one or something like that, and you want to give it like the property. But the thing is, that's it. Then you're gone. Then you're out of Jira, and you're back to doing whatever your QA thing is. You know, you're either testing a mobile app, or you're testing the game, or you're testing out a website or whatever, but you're not in this. You're not going to be in Jira for very long, is the point. At a time, at least. The developer side of the thing is he'll read the ticket and go, okay. Either add it to his list and go, no, is a feature. We want guy to be in space when you press the punch button. Or when you press the jump button. Or maybe when you press the punch button to punch people into space. It's a new feature for the game. We're going to keep it in. Point is, these kind of software suites and things, you're not going to be in them for very long. You're not going to be in like the time tracking thing for very long because you're only there to do whatever. I spent an hour in a meeting that didn't need to be a meeting, whatever. And that's it. It takes you less than a minute to write that. And then you're back to developing. You're back in the IDE, or if you're a designer, you're back in Photoshop, or whatever other piece of software you're using that is probably not monitored by the big data team because it's not an enterprise software. And to use that is just massively unreliable. Anyway, there's like a quick sort of rundown here. Not so quick rundown, but it's, yeah, we're going to lay you off because the robot said to. In a follow-up, he said they'd get compensation. If you're firing people for poor performance, you wouldn't compensate them. You wouldn't have HR help them find new jobs. What's going on there? And the other issue is the email where they say we used robots. It's like that. Okay, you're spying on people. Not great, but also sort of expected in the corporate world. And he said the reason that they were going to cut people wasn't necessarily due to underperformance or not being engaged, but it was due to the slowing company growth. Now, important to note here, slowing does not mean stop. Okay? It just means it's slowed. That's it. The need to slash payroll by 10%. It's slowing company growth. That's it. You're still growing. You're still making a profit. Even these unengaged and unproductive employees, 150 of them, but you're still making a profit. What is the problem? To do that, he's targeting the employees with the lowest performance metrics, not himself. Like, if it's such a big problem to the company that company growth is slowing, you're at the top. It's your fault. Cut your own damn pay. After the call, CEO and or president or founder, CEO and founder, tweets out, work your fucking ass off or get your fucking ass out. Then, according to Forbes Russia, maybe they're not getting fired. Well, what's going on here? And then the kind of last two pieces are he's like sharing people who are saying good on you for firing lazy workers, even though it would sound like you're probably the lazy one if you're offloading this job to just a robot to tell you what to do. But okay. And then the second one is like, hey, Silicon Valley does this. The absolutely great bastions of good corporate work, Silicon Valley pull this shit. But obviously the other issue is that this all had to be translated, so there's potentially some nuance being left off here. And the other issue is employee law is not great in Russia, so be a problem there. Anyway, the real issue that I really didn't like, and it's pointed out in this article here, is that the company plans to do this again every 6 months if it's not growing fast enough. That's a venture capital thing. That you need to grow. That you need to be making money, and you need to be making more money than you made last time. Always. Constantly. Why? So shareholders get more money. That's it. It's not healthy for the employees. Good for the shareholder because they get to buy another elephant or whatever. I don't know. Whatever they fucking do with all their money. But it's not healthy for an employee. It's not healthy for the company because what happens? That kind of growth is not sustainable. You cannot keep growing. At a certain point, you win capitalism and you've grown as much as you possibly can. You own the whole world. Your company is the company of the planet. But I can't grow any faster. Well, what am I going to do? I got to lay everybody off. We're not growing fast enough. Right? It's dumb. That's not how you do it. What does happen is the company implodes. And shareholders cut their losses. They've made all that money. All the employees are fucked. Happens all the time. Why? Nobody has a fucking union. Alright, anyway. Dumb stuff. Dumb stuff to cleanse the palate. No, it really doesn't. I'm still really angry about it. Anyway, GTA Online even, is filled with players walking in circles. So, there is a new reputation job. Online, it's the tuners. Don't know what they do, don't play the game, don't really care. This is mostly, I'm only doing this because it's funny. Basically, the rank cap for reaching higher levels is ridiculously high for this job. And the only way to earn role points, I guess, reputation points maybe, is through either racing, testing out new cars, which sounds also like racing to me, but okay, or passively walking around the car meet. Players have figured out that the passive Orphe method can be exploited very, very easily. Yes, it can. All you gotta do is walk around in a circle. Brilliant. So this is a Twitter video of another player who's just watching people do this, and that's all they're doing. They're avoiding going AFK by just walking in circles. And anyone who has had, I think this was an issue in some MMOs as well, where you would just put a weight on the W key and you'd be just running into the wall for however long, couple of hours, just leave your PC on, away you go. Fucks up your W key, but whatever. If you needed to do something that required you to walk around the place. You know, people do this for pedometer games as well. You know, they put them in a shaker or some kind of weight or something that will just decant them from left to right. But it's just this kind of thing that just highlights maybe the cap is too big. Maybe it's bullshit. Maybe you should bring it down a bit, because otherwise you've got people doing this. This isn't playing the game. This is people frustrated with an obnoxiously large rank cap. That's it. That's all that is. It's the game design not working properly. But it also is really fucking stupid. PUBG is now called PUBG-G. No, PUBG-B. PUBG-BG. Yes. PUBG is called PUBG Battlegrounds now, for some reason. So this is a knock-on effect of them trying to turn PUBG, the letters, PUBG, into the brand, and then have a bunch of games offshoot from it. So they've got the original, but then they're also going with a game called New State, so PUBG New State. There's going to be another one. It's only got a project name, so there's PUBG Mobile, it's PUBG Project Cowboy, whatever that is. And the Callisto Protocol is another separate game that apparently folds into the PUBG metaverse. PUB-Guh-Buh-Guh or PUBG, I don't know, I don't really care. But the knock-on effect is that now the original game is called PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. You fucking idiots. It's not even, is it even made by PlayerUnknown anymore? I don't know. I know Tencent have like bought the company, but I think they kept their name. Anyway, I just thought it was dumb. That's why it's dumb stuff. Fortnite disables bugged hug emote, which players say put them in a not safe for work position. So this is a new emote that was meant to be co-op emote, but basically if you both do it at the same time, there'll be a special animation. Both go in for a hug, and you're meant to do a hug, but that's not what happened. What happened is you go in for a hug, instead, one of you gives a lower hug instead. So you're here on the left. Both go in for the hug emote. But that's a good hug. I wouldn't mind that myself. Anyway, again, dumb stuff. I just thought it was funny. It has since been blocked and probably will be removed in a later update. And probably just in time because our Grande, whoever, fucking Grande Lattes, a concert's going to be happening in Fortnite at some point. Anyway, that was the news for the 2nd to the 8th of August 2021. Know what you thought? There's a continuing Blizzard, Activision Blizzard lawsuit fallout continues. I imagine we won't be hearing the end of that for quite some time. Just because it just keeps coming out, and I'm sort of like, I'm sure it's getting annoying to have to like keep hearing about it, especially when you can't do anything about it. You can only sit back and watch and maybe, you know, tweet out in solidarity if you can, but there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But I would prefer it stays, you know, in the spotlight, because the Ubisoft one didn't. Disappeared really quickly. People forgot about it really fast. They just moved on to the games, which, like, it's probably going to happen again because we're going to be hitting the run up to Christmas holiday season, where like all the games come out, so it's probably going to get overshadowed by them, and that sucks. So I'm somewhat hopeful that it will stay in the spotlight. I'll do my part to try to keep it front and center, but you can look down and look at the view count on these videos. You know, I'm not exactly don't exactly have a long reach with these kind of things. Anyway, PlayStation's indie showcase thing was just, yeah, I kind of thought these were on PlayStation already, and I'm surprised they're not, except for Hades. I knew Hades wasn't, but the rest of them, you know, why weren't they on PlayStation in the first place? Maybe it's because they've just been really shit for indies recently. They're only focusing on their big blockbuster $120 million games. Let's not angry up the blood about Jim Ryan again. Anyway, elsewhere on the channel, I did a kind of gameplay playthrough of Song of Horror over on the channel on Friday. Very graciously, Razor Games sent a key out for me to show that game off. So that's literally never happened before, and I'm somewhat thinking somebody wasn't paying attention when they clicked yes, but whatever, I'll go with it. So do check that out if you get a chance. It's an interesting game, and it is like really old school survival horror stuff. Looking to get back to it at some point. Also, that replaced the Plague Tale video for this week, last week rather, so Plague Tale Part 4 will be out this week on Friday. Be looking to do Pokemon Snap on Wednesday, so look for that, or it might end up being next week if I never get around to it, I don't know. Anyway, let me know what you thought of the video, and for any videos coming up, any games I should be aware of, new releases. It was just the one, and I also probably won't get around to playing that for quite some time. So if there's any games that are on my radar, or should have been on my radar, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time.